Hello, welcome to Cirrius Talk. I'm your host, Greg Banks. Today, I have Chad Anderson, the CEO of Cirrius Solutions, and Tim Harting, our Chief Operating Officer. Well, it's finally here, Dreamforce Week. Today on Cirrius Talk, Tim and Chad give an overview for what is included in AgentForce 360, what it is, why it matters, and how leaders can move from pilot to production. We'll cover the 4 pillars that comprise AgentForce and a simple rubric to help you pick your first use case. Thank you for joining us today. Let's dive in. Hey, Tim and Chad, welcome back to Cirrius Talk. Great to have you today. This is a big week in our world. Salesforce's preeminent ship of gathering, Dreamforce, kicks off in just under 2 hours today. We know there's going to be some good news and a lot of announcements coming out, but one of the ones we're hearing first and loudest is AgentForce 360. Tim, help me break this elephant down. I know there's a lot behind it, not just the name. So let's break this down. What all do we know is included?
Yep. Thanks, Greg. Yeah, it's the exercise all Salesforce professionals go through every year, right? Is it hype or real? I think you could go back and look at the themes for Dreamforce's past, and it's probably about a 50-50 in terms of what's actually stuck and what's changed. So it's always adds a little bit of fun, a little bit of drama, just talking about like what do we think is going to stick around. But yeah, the main keynote here is still coming up here in a couple hours. So we're pretty early on the jump here, recording Tuesday, October 14th on what's going to come out with Dreamforce. But we've got enough articles and announcements to go off of where I think we can really hone in on to kind of what some of the key takeaways are going to be. And I think to no surprise of anybody, the theme of the day is more AgentForce, and the new term here, AgentForce 360. What it seems like, kind of diving into the different material and announcements and videos put out thus far, is really one, a rebranding effort. Salesforce is no stranger to changing names to kind of match its branding and strategy. So we see that happening again here. So a branding effort. But there is some meat on the bone. There are some good capabilities kind of in some core areas here that are being announced as well. So we'll dive into each of those as well. But at the end of the day, what is the AgentForce 360 platform? Well, they're forming the entire platform around AgentForce in 4 pillars. So now you have the AgentForce 360 platform, which is the foundation of AgentForce, and at this point, the foundation of Salesforce, with some big capabilities we'll get into a little bit. Then Data Cloud getting a rebrand to Data 360, kind of matching the Customer 360 branding that they've used in the past for the other applications. It's the data layer, the fuel to AgentForce. Again, some new capabilities there as well. And then they're really taking the rest of the Salesforce platform and clumping it together into the AgentForce Customer 360 apps. So saying this, what used to be the core of Salesforce is now the business logic and institutional memory for your enterprise that's actually fueling AgentForce. So I think that's like the biggest change from like a philosophical or like conceptual approach that they're trying to do. And then Slack is the 4th pillar of their AgentForce 360 platform, which is the front-end conversational interface where humans collaborate with agents. They're really pushing that hard. I think they're right with that. Like Slack is a perfect system, perfect tool for working with agents, and they're really leaning heavy into it. So now you kind of see this new kind of pulling together, really, I think maybe making it a little bit more coherent of how the platform's intended to work together across a lot of disparate tools and features and capabilities. So I think there's some value to this, right? I think ultimately this is primarily a branding exercise, but I also think it signifies kind of a shift that Salesforce has leaned all in on AgentForce, and they believe now it's at the point where they're ready to literally make AgentForce like the core of their platform, which I think is pretty interesting. But I don't know, Chad, what were some of your first takes from kind of looking at this as well?
Yeah, so I agree with the Slack. I think that is huge. I think we're looking for one place where we can interact with, agents, our team, our customers. And they just re-enabled MCP, which is Model Context Protocol, which allows us to integrate with things like OpenAI, Anthropic. And I just think it is really going to fuel, kind of how we work and where we work. So I think that's a really big thing. And then obviously AgentForce 360 with Agent Builder, AgentForce Voice. I know you're going to talk through that in more detail, but I think there is a lot there that really helps us, configure things differently, design differently, and deploy faster. I think there's a few things we need to look out for there, but I do think the overall productivity of our consulting firm will be better because of these new enhancements.
Yeah, no, I agree. And yeah, I think we'll look kind of specifically at some of the, so yeah, branding exercise, 4 pillars, but what's some of the new capabilities like that businesses are actually going to kind of get, what's new. So kind of looking under the hood, we'll look at the AgentForce platform announcements today. I think those are some of the most significant. And first, you mentioned is AgentForce Builder. It's a new conversational development studio where we can use natural language to do configuration within Salesforce. And I think that's something we've been waiting for a while. There's a lot of other tools that do that on other platforms up to this point. And, one of the biggest value propositions of Salesforce was, hey, it's faster to implement, faster to get to production because it's enterprise grade and it's clicks, not code, low code tools. But now there's it's with vibe coding, with the lovables and the replets and the Claude code. It's like, okay, is that still a competitive advantage or not? Like that's what a lot of our customers have been asked. That's what we've been asking. And so Agentforce Builder, I think that's a big step towards kind of, making Salesforce fast to implement at the enterprise grade, production grade level, which has kind of always been one of their main value props. At AgentForce Voice, which was announced as well, so that was one of the second kind of new big announcements. They've been alluding to this for months. It's advertised as a very low latency transcription with very realistic speech synthesis. We'll see with the demos. We're going to see a lot of demos on it, throughout the week. But with Salesforce, you're really getting a true IVR enterprise grade Service Cloud voice now paired with AgentForce Voice capability. I think this could be a really big ad as well. Everything's been text-based for AgentForce. I know we have several customers that will definitely be interested in taking a deep dive on this and looking to pilot this soon. But any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I just think overall it's going to be better. It's going to have real-time, conversations with lower latency for sure. And I think it's more realistic speech. So I think they're improving on what they already had. And I think it'll be even better. So that's good.
Yeah. So third on the kind of list of kind of big capabilities coming out is hybrid reasoning and agent script with the Atlas reasoning engine. So the Atlas reasoning engine is kind of the reasoning piece or component under the hood of Salesforce AgentForce that's allowing it to kind of loop through and reason through and work complex use cases. What it appears is kind of two things with this. One, Salesforce is announcing agent script, so its own language to script or code or configure your reasoning engines the way you want it to be. Again, seems to kind of be, out of Salesforce's playbook to kind of come up with their own language to kind of, really have a language that specifically does, what it's tailored to do. So be interested to see what doors that opens up. But then also I think this is, maybe the dark horse out of all these announcements. It's kind of third on the list in terms of how Salesforce ranks them and announces them. But, the Atlas reasoning engine has been a black box for Salesforce admins, developers, consultants like us up to this point. And I think now we're able to configure and tune the Atlas reasoning engine specific to businesses. This could be really big. I don't know what you guys thought on that one too.
Yeah, I agree. I think what they're improving is going to drive, higher accuracy, higher reliability, broader coverage of scenarios. If everything they're saying comes true, it'll be really, really good. That's all I have.
Yeah, so we have AgentForce Vibes as kind of the fourth capability. It's a low-code development tool for AI. So again, you can vibe code applications within the Salesforce platform. Again, along with AgentForce Builder, I think this really puts the Salesforce platform on par or on the path to be on par with other platforms that allow you to use natural language or voice to code and configure. So I think that could be really big. And then finally, new dashboards and components for observability. I think this is a big value add for AgentForce. Part of the value prop, besides being a wrapper around AI agents, is you're getting a lot of capabilities in one tool. So you're not having to go piece together 4 or 5 different platforms or different tools to have a true enterprise-grade agent. And observability and evals are proving to be really, really important and crucial for production-grade AI agents. So be interesting to see kind of what doors that opens up as well, outside of just some additional templates. It's something that already existed, so it'll be interesting to see like what's really new within that component. I'd say that the jury's maybe still out in terms of what I think about that announcement and what it'll mean for our customers. But yeah, I think so. 5 kind of pretty key announcements. Again, nothing revolutionary, but I think each one of those signifies just AgentForce continuing to get more and more enterprise grade production ready across more use cases, which is a good thing.
Yeah, obviously all our devices are working. My news feed has completely been transformed to AI articles. That's all I see coming up on my browser and stuff these days. One of the things I hear inside and outside of Salesforce is data quality. So data, you look back over the last few years of Salesforce bringing Data Cloud, where they now become the monster big data tool inside the platform. And now you've got AI. 360 is not a new term for them, right? They've done this before where you've collected an array of things. I need an easy way to get them from one place. Think of your dashboard in your car. I see everything that's going on there. Now I've got an agent that can act on my behalf from one place in the tool. So there's a lot to come from this. We're speculating a little bit and see how these announcements go and how they kind of really vet these things out over the next few days. It's going to be fun to watch. Tim, as I'm sitting here, I've sat through hundreds of conversations with clients over the years about technology, evolution, whatnot, and your wheels can't help but turn. When you hear news like this and you think about AI agents, like, I don't know what to do, but I got to do something. Companies have to evaluate a variety of things on how to prioritize what's the first use case to try and put an AI agent out there. There's got to be some type of formulation we can help people out with here. What are some things that in your mind really help companies navigate those waters?
Yeah, I think what we found working with a lot of customers kind of within the space is getting the right use case first is very, very important. Your chances of success, if you pick a sound use case that makes sense first and go live, for rolling out other use cases after that are significantly higher than if you look to do a pilot up front. That's not a good use case and it bombs out. Use case prioritization is something that we've really tried to hone in and actually create a framework around. And it's kind of evolved over the last year since we've really been working with enterprises and customers on rolling AI agents out. I think what you typically see for the typical model is really looking at 2 main inputs or variables. So if I have 10 different ideas or use cases as a business, we've done a bunch of workshops, we have these great ideas, we fleshed out those a little bit, and then the 2 big things you hear thrown around a lot is value and effort. So if you throw value on a y-axis, effort on the x-axis, we want to target things that are higher value and lower effort first. Not a bad way to approach it. That's better than using no methodology or no way of prioritizing use cases that you're doing. And that's kind of where we started as well. But we realized you really got to factor in a little bit more than that too. So what we've kind of narrowed down to and kind of what our framework or methodology is at this point is around 5 key variables that you got to have to factor in and keep in mind. So yeah, first, planned value. So what is the benefit or value for the business? It has to drive value. Like that is a non-negotiable. If it's not driving true, tangible business value, the chances of that getting to production and then staying in production for a long time and the business being willing to continue to invest resources, it's just not going to be there. So it has to have value. Level of effort, obviously, is a big factor. Like it's got to be reasonable versus the value it's going to bring. So, we start with the first 2. Those haven't gone away. But additive to that, I think you got to look at the people component here. And that's one of the main things we realized that, the original model's missing. You got to look at adoption or task sentiment. How likely are people to want to use this AI agent? And we like put it in simple terms. And this is what we found really successful. What's the task sentiment? If you're trying to take and give a task to an AI agent, a job to be done, what's the task sentiment for people on that task? Is it something they like or dislike? If you put it on a 0 to 5 scale, if it's something that people love doing and you're replacing it, the chances of them actually like wanting to adopt it's going to be pretty low. It seems really basic when we talk about it now, but it's like a lot of businesses aren't actually factoring that in, and it's causing them to maybe pick a high value use case that just won't get adopted as quickly. You want to target something that people don't want to do. And then finally, the last 2, we'll jump into each of these maybe a little bit more detail, can get your guys' feedback too, but time criticality. There's going to be, life is real. projects and you're rolling out your agents exists in an environment that has a lot of other factors. So you got to factor in that fiscal year considerations, other projects, et cetera. So with each use case, you kind of got to tag, is this time critical for this use case or not? That has to be factored into your overall ranking. And then finally, confidence or risk. Like how much, are you trying to hit a home run in the first kind of go round with highest value versus wanting to be safe and being very confident in the solution? So you got to factor that in as well. So plan value, level of effort, task sentiment, time criticality, and confidence and risk. What we found, that kind of gives you a good holistic view. If you can put a 0 to 5, we created some different formulas and stuff too, but you don't have to get too complicated with it. Bottom line, if you can put a 0 to 5 score on each one of those things for every use case and then map that onto a quad chart, you're going to be pretty good in terms of identifying the right use case to start. What we've seen drastically increases your chance of success. But Chad, I know you've been a big part of helping kind of make this framework with us, but what have you seen with some of the customers or thoughts on that too?
Yeah, I mean, I think you covered it very well. Obviously, this is all under one big umbrella of capability. So where can your agents perform really well? Do you have the right data? Do you, have the right sentiment for them to really do their job? But yeah, I mean, I think you summed it up really well. The bottom line is you need to look at more than just value. I think it can be detrimental to the organization if you start telling everyone we're going to build these agents and we're going to lay a bunch of people off. I mean, quite honestly, that can be very bad. It's got to be enhancing what people can do, and then ultimately, driving ROI at the same time. So, yep. I agree with what you said.
Yeah, I think you said in the last episode, Chad, we talked about the agent being kind of a helper, right? This needs to be something that comes alongside, and it either helps you leverage the things you're doing or does some things you don't really want to do anyway. I see that as if somebody walked in my office I didn't know and they just started helping, I'm not going to complain about that. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, but yeah, Tim, thanks for breaking that down. There's just so many ways your mind can run away, and if you don't go into it with a real intentionality, you can wind up doing something not so good for the company. So I'm going to throw into some hot takes here on some topics that I'm reading about. Just give me a gut reaction here. Voice agents, are they ready to handle customer service at scale?
Well, I think Salesforce thinks they're ready. They're making Service Cloud Voice or AgentForce Voice now the kind of their main theme for Dreamforce this year. So I think it'll be really interesting to kind of see them play out. My short answer would be yes with an asterisk. I think it's yes for the right use case for the right customer audience, right? You really got to look at your customer base and their willingness to talk with an AI agent for whatever the use case is that you're trying to do. So, but I think we're going to see more and more of it, especially in the Salesforce space, based on what we're seeing at Dreamforce this year.
Good deal. Is there any indication at this point about multi-language? I know when Salesforce Voice came out a few years ago, it was obviously came out in English. But a lot of the things really quickly spun to, can it speak Japanese? Can it do all the different dialects of different languages, whatnot? Has there been anything said about the agent voice multi-language capability?
Not that I've seen yet. I think that's maybe something we'll get with some of the other announcements later this week. I mean, yeah, at the enterprise level, definitely something that a lot of enterprises are going to need to see to be able to roll it out globally.
Yeah, cool. Next one. Agent hallucinations. Is this a fatal flaw, or is this just a phase that the agents are going through?
Yeah, I think this is, I would say neither, because I actually think, vast majority of the time, hallucinations, if we're blaming AI for the hallucination, we're kind of taking the human agency from the developers and or architects that develop that solution kind of out of the equation. Context is king when it comes to AI agents. There's a lot of tools and methods and architecture design to manage your context windows and to provide the right context to the AI agent to prevent those hallucinations. So I think hallucinations are really a bug. And need to be treated as a bug. There's ways to get around it. Again, at the end of the day, an AI agent is a program. It's programmed to do something and act in a certain way. It has a little bit more agency than a pure workflow automation solution will have. But at the end of the day, I think the tools are available now to mitigate that. And so with the right architecture, with the right testing, that can really be taken out of the equation. So if you're seeing that a lot and then AI is just being blamed, I think you really got to look at the overall solution design of what you're building first rather than AI itself. And I think that's becoming more and more clear as context engineering becomes its own really niche and space within the development world.
Fair enough. Yeah, I've seen so many articles about the data quality having an effect on this. This may be the thing that finally gets customers really focused on cleaning up some of their data to make sure the context the agent has access to is gonna bring the right answer to the customer, whether that's an internal or external user. You want to get there as quickly and accurately as you can.
Right. Yeah, totally. And I think the other thing that's becoming more and more clear as we work with more and more agents is AI is really good at grading and holding accountable other AI agents. So you can have, guardrail agents or gatekeeper agents that are grading the outputs. So if you have, let's say, a 5% hallucination rate, where that AI agent 5% of the time is hallucinating. One, you got to go fix the underlying data problem. But let's say you still are getting that. If you had a gatekeeper agent, another agent that's checking that agent, and then it kicks it back if it realizes it hallucinates, and that agent maybe even hallucinates only 5% of the time. So that means for you to get a true hallucination of the end user, both of them would have to hallucinate on the exact same use case. You knock that, like that one simple thing, besides even fixing the underlying data, can knock out 95% of your hallucinations that you get to where it's like a fractional of a percent. So there are simple design mechanisms you can use to really fix and address that.
Fantastic point. Yeah, work smarter, not harder, right? Let the tools help you out. All right, last one. Enterprise adoption. Are AI agents still in pilot purgatory? What's the data tell you?
Yeah, I think we're seeing more and more kind of studies come out that's showing we're moving into the production phase for a lot of businesses. I think most recently there was a study released by Superintelligent where they interviewed over 1,000 different executives, and roughly don't quote me on this. I think, though, it was around 30% of businesses that were interviewed or have agents going into or already in production right now, with a lot more right behind that, with pilots soon to go to production. Like 30% is not an insignificant number. So that's a pretty major jump from a year ago. So I'd say we're solidly in kind of the production phase. They're ready for prime time. Again, for the right use cases. You got to identify the right use case of where to put it. Putting an AI agent in the wrong use case, is going to set you up for failure for sure.
Yeah, this is a great point. And obviously, we're taking some of these things hot off the press, so to speak. So it'll be interesting to see what unfolds at Dreamforce this week. But you can't overlook the substantiality to AgentForce. If you think back over the years of what's disruptive, from dumb terminals to Windows computers to cloud-based computing, these were major things that companies had different rates of jumping to. I don't remember any of those being where you went from nothing to 30% of the people out there were doing it in the first year. So this has been a very important year to watch how fast Salesforce has responded to the feedback and bring the product around. It's going to be an exciting week. I look forward to what's coming out later today and throughout the week. But guys, thank you so much for the time. Next week, we'll be interested to see if we have to adjust anything we said today because Salesforce went a different way with it, but just really looking forward to it. But thank y'all both for your time today. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah. That's what's making it interesting with the AI space. It's like every week there's something new. So I'm sure half of what we said might be obsolete. So we'll find out. Makes it exciting.
Find out soon. All right, guys. Thanks a
Yeah,
lot.
Awesome. Thanks, Greg.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for today's episode of Cirrius Talk. I really appreciate Tim and Chad joining us today to unpack what is expected from AgentForce 360 and at Dreamforce. This undoubtedly will be a big news week. Please join us again next time, and we can dig deeper into consulting in the tech space, as well as big news from around the Salesforce ecosystem. Please subscribe to be alerted to new episodes. If you have any questions, you can reach us at cirriustalk@cirriussolutions.com. The address will be in the show notes. Thanks again, and I hope we'll see you next time.